In this episode of the Locked On NBA Big Board Podcast, me, James Barlowe, and Richard Stayman, we are going to talk about the list that just came out today. We're going to talk about the players that have been invited to the 2025 NBA Combine in Chicago, find out which players we are looking forward to seeing, which players that we think really need to have a strong combine, the guys that are testing the waters, and who did not make the list. Big shout out to each and every person that has made the Locked On NBA Big Board Podcast your first listen of the day. I'm your host, Rafael Barlowe, along with my co-hosts, my brother James and Richard Stayman. And we are here to talk about the list of players that will be in Chicago for the NBA Combine. But before we get too deep into this episode, I want to let you know that it is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. And if you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel, please subscribe, like, share, comment, click the bell so you can be notified every time we drop an episode because it is May. We got the Combine coming up in 2 weeks. Got some exclusive behind the scenes NBA draft content. I actually was filming today and Dirk Nowitzki showed up at a workout. So that was pretty cool. But let's talk about the 2025 NBA draft. James and I will be in Chicago. I actually got invited. A little flex here. I got invited to be at the actual lottery. So I'm looking forward to that. I mean, you think I should wear a suit or not? I mean, do I come like...
Yeah.
Wear a suit?
Suit up. I think so.
Yeah, why not? You represent the family name.
I don't think I've ever seen Rafael in a suit.
I mean, you never had a reason to see me in a suit. I'm not about to pod in a suit.
I see the big B. I see like
you do a podcast in a suit, you be sweating, man.
Actually, you know what? We did one the 2022 NBA draft. We did these draft clippings. And man, I was so hot. Had the lights on, and the draft is like 4 hours. I was like, yeah, I don't know. I might wear a suit. I don't want to be overdressed. I don't want to look like I'm about to get drafted.
Man, why not?
But anyway, I'll be at the lottery. I'm looking forward to that. I will be at the Combine. Let's talk about this list. All right. First of all, we'll start with you, Richard. Which players are you looking forward to seeing?
Yeah, I'm excited for the blend of international guys and guys that got hurt. So looking at I know he came back at the end, but Boogie Flans, right? Cedric Coward, those kind of guys. And then on top of that, just seeing how they mesh with some of the guys like Michael Ruzic, you got Alex Tuhey, those kind of guys. I think just that group of players, I'd love to see them play against each other. Different play styles, right? Didn't get to see a lot of them in high major. How do they get to look against different competition? Does Boogie Flan do better at the rim in the scrimmages when he likely plays? I'm really excited to see that.
What about you, James? Which players are you looking forward to seeing? This will be your first Combine. Shout out to James.
He stole one of them. Well, I guess you say he stole it, but I definitely want to see Boogie Flan. It's a big opportunity for him as well. Obviously, he says Cedric Coward. I want to see Carter Knox because he had a nice little run at the end of the season. He shot the ball well, and he has some intriguing tools. I want to see him out there. I do want to see your boy Nicolas Avdalis in that situation because, again, he's an overseas guy under the radar. I want to see my guy Dink Pate out there, too, because, again, he was in the G League, out of sight, out of mind. He got invited to the big camp. And I do want to see Yaxel Lendeborg, too, because he's got an interesting choice to make. Is he going to take that big bread back in college, or is he going to roll the dice? We'll see.
You know what's crazy is I saw Dink at the EYBL. I didn't get a chance to see him work out. I didn't have time, but he's working out in Phoenix. I saw Dink at EYBL. I had a chance to watch Yaxel Lendeborg work out on Tuesday. I saw Yaxel work out on Tuesday, and I saw Nicolas Avdalis work out, I want to say Tuesday and Thursday. Maybe it was Wednesday and Thursday, but I've had a chance to watch him work out twice. I did an interview with him, so look forward to the interview and the behind-the-scenes exclusive workout footage. I can't believe you didn't mention Hanson Yang. That's the guy
I'm
I'm looking
not,
forward
man.
to seeing the most.
I mean, I expect big things from Yang. I'm not. Look, when Yang goes out there and he like plays extremely well, I'm not gonna be surprised. I'm just gonna be tweeting like, pat me on the back gifts on Twitter. Like, I'm not worried about him at all. He's about to cook. But it's some of these other guys I want to see, like, they have a chance to improve their style. But not Yang, he's gonna hoop.
Yeah, man, that's the guy. That's the first name that stood out. As soon as I saw the list, I'm scrolling. All right, saw
I
Hanson.
want to see the guys that have to guard him. That's what I want to see. Because at the college level, who did you see like that is that tall, that skilled? That's what I want to see. Who's going to guard him? And do they underestimate him? Because we see like when he goes up against guys, he pretty much has his way. So
yeah, it'd be interesting to see how he plays and how he keeps up with the speed of the game. I mean, FIBA play, he's been pretty dominant. I thought he struggled a little bit with the pace of Summer League, but he's the guy that I'm looking forward to seeing the most. Other players that I'm looking forward to seeing, Dink Pate, obviously Dink Pate and Avdalis. So I'm looking forward to seeing how he does in that situation. And then we'll talk about players later on that kind of need a strong combine, but have like this luxury of, if I don't have a strong combine, I can go back to school and make a boatload of money. So I wonder how that impacts the play of the combine, because I think guys are obviously they're going to play hard. It is an interview, but for the most part, if you're not like a 4-year guy, you have a very, very nice cushion behind you if you don't have a strong tournament. All right, here's a question. It's not on the rundown. Do you think the top guys are going to play? They're supposed to play, but at what cutoff do you think it is? Do you think it's going to be guys that are outside of the lottery? Like, I'm really curious to see who plays and who doesn't play. What is your thoughts on that, James?
All right. Cooper Flag, I don't expect, obviously. Harper, Ace Bailey.
But they're supposed to play, though.
I don't expect to see a lot of them. I mean, I feel like there are probably 7 or 8 guys who have I don't think they have too much to gain. It might be 10 guys that don't have too much to gain from this particular experience. But like if you look at like a Colin Murray Boyles, you know what I'm saying? Like depending on where you value him at and where you see him at, like he could be somebody that, depending on where everybody sees, like he can really improve his stock. So, and in his case, you want to play against those guys who are likely to, not have as much to prove. But I don't know, man. It's going to be interesting to see how that works as far as like who plays and how much they play.
I got a question for you, Richard. So you were there. You were there the year that Dylan Mitchell shot the ball well.
Yeah, 2023.
So, he should have left right then and there. I mean, I'm sure he's probably making good money in NIL. He just transferred to St. John's, but he didn't like make any threes at all his freshman year, if I'm not mistaken. He shot decent during the drills, and I want to say he made some threes in the 5-on-5 play. So let's say Colin Murray Boyles has a Dylan Mitchell type performance from 3 where he's making some in the games. How high do you think he could go?
And see, for him, it's so different too, right? Because Dylan Mitchell was a guy that was always fringe top 60. We're talking about a guy that's fringe top 10 generally. And I think if he's hitting them, especially in game, that's where I think teams would be like, look, we have a sample size of him doing this stuff. I think it would boost his stock to being in the, like, I'm sure you guys have seen, there's a lot of people on draft Twitter, right, that have him top 5. And I think that could start getting closer and closer to the norm if he shoots really well.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked to some NBA teams, and he's definitely a player that draft Twitter is significantly higher on than NBA teams. I mean, there's a few guys that I've believed that the draft Twitter, because most of draft Twitter is very analytics driven, and they're higher on certain guys than NBA teams. All right, up next, I want to talk a little bit more about the 5-on-5 play, because that's going to be like the most interesting thing. Are we going to see like 19 guys have sore calves, pulled hamstring, jammed thumbs? I wonder what type of injuries are going to pop up when it's time to play. And in the second segment, we are going to also talk about the players that need a strong combine to solidify their draft range. Have you ever checked your bank account and you wonder where in the world did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it is very, very easy to lose track. And that is where Monarch Money comes in. It is your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. And Monarch Money is not just a budgeting app. It is a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, your investments, and your spending in one place, so you can stop managing your money and start building wealth. And also, managing your money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track your shared and personal accounts and set goals. You can stay on the same page without the stress. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That is monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. All right, second segment. So when I was looking back at my notes from last year and some of the guys that I wrote about that had strong performances in the 5-on-5 play at the Combine, Baylor Shireman, I think he was the last pick in the first round. Then KJ Simpson was a second rounder. Adem Bona was a second rounder. Trenton Flowers. AJ Johnson was the surprise first rounder. Coleman Hawkins went to school. So when I'm looking at these guys that played, Jonathan Mobo played, and I think he was probably, he went a lot higher than I expected. AJ Mitchell was a second rounder. Nikola Jurisic, I thought really helped himself playing. Harrison Ingram. But just looking at the guys that played at the Combine last year in the 5-on-5 play, nobody close to a lottery pick, just based off the guys that I had wrote about that had strong performances. So I'm wondering, which player do you think is a lock to be a first rounder is going to play? There was a year where I want to say, I forgot the number off the top of my head, but I want to say 48 of my top 60 players did not play in 5-on-5 play.
It might have been 2023. I remember everybody sat out that year. And I think that's why they made the change for last year too, where everyone at least has to participate in the testing and everything. Because some guys were just sitting. I remember several top 10 picks. We were just seeing the stands during everything. And they were there basically just for the interviews. I think someone like Rasheer Fleming, could he play? He might be the best player that plays. I don't think Colin Murray Boyles does. I know we talked about him. It'd be cool if he did, but maybe him. Here's one. Does Nick Clifford play again? He was in it last year, had a pretty rough outing. Does he try and does he have the motivation personally to say, it may not be in my best interest, but I have a point to prove? Does he go out there and actually play in the scrimmages? I'd like to see it personally.
Yeah, I think he's a solidified as a first round pick. All right, let's talk about the players that you feel like they need to play and they need to have a strong combine, whether it is to reboost their draft stock, answer questions. Who are some of the players that come to mind for you? Let's start with you, Richard.
Yeah, three guys that first came to mind. Will Riley. I think he had so much of an up and down year. If he could have a really strong, just however many days he actually does stuff, whether or not he has the pro day or not, just call it the week, I guess. If he has a strong week, he's somebody that I think could really rise potentially as far as lottery. Really, I guess even, just safely into the lottery zone, right? So he's one. I'm interested to see two guys around the edge, though, that have been floating around for a while. One is Jameer Watkins. He was there last year, didn't do too hot. I think he's also in the portal, too, so he's in a weird zone. And he's somebody that I'm just interested to see, does he blow up this year and actually, come together? He had a really good season this year at FSU and a down year for the team. And then Chaz Lanier from Tennessee. I'm interested just to see, what does his game look like if he doesn't just do jump shooting stuff? I really want to see that and how that looks in more pro setting.
For me, it's Hunter Salas. I had Hunter as a first rounder last year. And if you just look at his numbers this year, they were very, very similar. Outside of the three-point shooting, took a significant dip. And I believe that he's had 3 out of 4 years below 30% from three or below 32% from three. He had the outlier year last year where he shot in the high 30s or low 40s. I think for him, it's very, very important to have a strong combine simply because he's not in the portal. Like Watkins is in the portal, and I guess he still has eligibility left. But for Hunter Salas, this is a very, very important combine for him because, I mean, I have him as a top 40 player, but I know like ESPN has him like outside of their top 60. They have him undrafted. And so for him, I just think it's very important because he doesn't have college to fall back on. Most of the guys have college to fall back on if they don't have a strong showing. What about you, James? Who is the player or players that you feel like need a strong combine?
So players, I want to say Drake Powell is all in on the process. And I think that he needs a strong combine because, again, he had an up and down season. I want to say up and down because of expectations. I thought he had like late lottery level talent coming in to North Carolina, but he got stuck being a corner boy and he shot the ball pretty well, but he didn't have like the defensive counting stats of a Carter Bryant who's going to go probably top 20. So I want to see Drake Powell. I thought he was more of a hooper than a role player, but he had to be a role player because North Carolina didn't have any bigs. I also want to see Grant Nelson play in the see what it looks like for him. He has a lot of tools, especially with his size, and he's been somebody who's flirted with the process last year. And, you know, Alabama wins games, but he's somebody who doesn't have any eligibility left. So I want to see him in the up and down. They already played up and down style at Alabama, but like it'll be the NBA spacing, and you can possibly see all those different tools that he does have because he is 6'10", 6'11". He is an athlete, and he can handle the ball. So I want to say Drake Powell and Grant Nelson are the two guys that I feel like need a big performance. And also I mentioned in the first segment, Carter Knox. Like I said, he ended the season strong, and I want to see what he does. And he's somebody who I think can boost his stock as well.
I remember Grant, was it 2 years ago, Richard? He looked really good in the drills. I mean, you saw the fluidity, the athleticism. The jumper was absolutely broken, and then he just looked lost in the 5-on-5 play. And for me, well, I believe that it was a very, very good decision for him to go to Alabama because you could tell he went from North Dakota State to like the NBA Combine, and he was just not ready for that type of athleticism. And then he goes from being like the most physically dominant athlete on the court to playing with other guys that were just as athletic. And you could tell that there was a learning curve there. So I am curious to see how he looks in this setting.
I mean, I agree with James on most of this too. Drake Powell's a great shout out. Another one that's kind of interesting is Tahad Pettiford and LeBaron Philon, two guys from SEC and Alabama. I mean, those are guys that I feel like if LeBaron blows up, you know, he's going to go back to where he was in terms of draft stock in January. And Pettiford's somebody who almost low, I don't want to say usage, but the low impact role right away that he just blew up in that role. I'm interested to see how he does in a more egalitarian offense where he actually gets more freedom.
I'm looking to see how many coaches from Duke staff will be at the Combine. So a couple years ago, you remember, Richard, we sat like a few rows in front of the entire Creighton staff. And I thought it was the weirdest thing because they are there. They have on their Creighton shirts. You like they want to be supportive of their players, but at the same time, you're hoping that they come back. Kalkbrenner came back, and then they ended up having a pretty strong season. So with that being said, Duke has Cedric Coward, who has his name is in the portal. Well, he's actually committed to Duke, but he got invited to the Combine along with Isaiah Evans. I think Isaiah Evans, people were surprised to see his name on that list because when the reports came out, he was returning to school. I didn't see anywhere that he had put his name in the draft. So there's a chance that Duke could lose like two of their projected starting wings, or they can get both of them or both of them could be in Durham next year. So that's one of the things that I'm interested in seeing is how many people from Duke staff will be in attendance, because obviously Flag is going to be there, Molly Wouch, Kneppel, you got Cian James is going to be there, and then Tyrese Proctor. So they probably figured those guys are gone, but they're probably keeping their fingers crossed that they can get Sid Coward and Isaiah Evans in a Duke uniform.
I bet you Darren Harris wants one or both of those guys to stay in the draft.
Man, he should have left. If I'm Darren Harris, I'm on my way to Waco, Texas right now.
See, nah, I disagree. Darren's the guy though that when he was in I forget what the EYBL team was, he was like an afterthought early into his career there, and he sat and he was a sponge. He learned everything, and he blew up in his 17s, and now he got to Duke. I think he's going to do the exact same thing at Duke. I think he's going to blow up next year. People kind of overlook him because not one and done, didn't play. I think he's going to do really well next year.
I like his game, but if Coward
come, where's he going to play?
Yeah, if Coward's there, Isaiah Evans is there.
Well, if Evans would be the one that would block him. I think he could easily slide into the same role Evans got, get the same, low usage, could easily climb next year.
Ooh,
I also think Coward stays in the draft though. Like he is, if both of them leave, like Darren Harris will blow up, but it is a big risk.
Yeah, I think Coward's going to stay in the draft. I mean, he played 6 games last year and still got an invite, so that tells you a lot there. But I've had him as a first round pick all year, so I am not surprised at all. All right, up next, we're going to talk about the players testing the waters. Richard kind of mentioned a couple of them with Tahad Pettiford and LeBaron Filan, so we're going to talk about those guys. And like I said, I think they have an excellent insurance process or policy if they don't have a strong combine. All right, last segment. So let's just talk about the 2 guys that you mentioned. We can dig a little bit deeper. I really like Tahad Pettiford. And I mentioned, I don't know if it was in my newsletter or on the podcast, I spoke with a high-ranking official for a team, and he says, why would I draft Jeremiah Fears early in the first round when I can get Tahad Pettiford late in the first round? And he mentioned that if their roles were reversed, that Fears probably wouldn't start for Auburn, and he feels like Pettiford is just as fast, just as good as getting in the paint, maybe even a better athlete. And we know that he's a better shooter. Yes, he's a little bit smaller, but he doesn't feel like there's that big of a gap between them. So I'm really interested to see how Pettiford plays. I mean, when it came to having big games as a freshman season, whether it was against Duke, on the road against Houston, Pettiford came up big. And so I wonder, how does he look in this setting?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's somebody that I don't necessarily fully agree with the Jeremiah Fears thing, but I get where you're coming from with that, where it's, the freshman scoring. I think Fears is a much better passer, but this is something where it's like playing in the scrimmages. That's where Pettiford could fully blow up as a playmaker, right? Show that he is not just an ISO scorer, but do all these things with the ball in his hands, right? As a playmaker, be the point guard, truly, not just a scoring guard. I think that would do a lot for his stock. And then that way, 30 versus 10 for Fears, let's just use those numbers as examples. Like if you're taking Pettiford in the first 10 picks of the second round, that is a really good bargain.
Yeah, I mean, if he is in the first 10 picks in the second round, that means something went wrong because it's definitely more lucrative to return to Auburn. Yeah. And which players for you, James, that are testing the waters that you feel like they got a really, really, really tough decision to make?
Boogie Flan. It seems like the obvious. He's in the portal. You mentioned Waco. I feel like,
is he in the portal?
Yeah.
Did he put his name in the portal?
I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah. So I believe he's in the portal.
He did. You're right.
I don't know. Well, he's in the portal. He should have Waco in his back pocket. That's Baylor, because their team still doesn't really have a point guard. But Boogie Flan is somebody who I see, if he shoots the ball to the caliber that we think he can shoot the ball at and mixes in the floater and finishes well enough, I think he has a tough decision, obviously, because of the money that he could make at Baylor. But I buy his skill level. I buy his ability to run a team, even with that log jam of guards they had last year. At Arkansas, he was almost at 6 assists per game. He just didn't shoot the ball well. He definitely didn't finish well. So I think he has a really, really big, big opportunity to make himself an NBA player. And I mean, obviously the money's going to be there. for him in college, but I feel like even if he's early first, like you said, first 10 guys in the second round, it's a successful event for him.
Yaxel Lendeborg, stay in the draft or go to Michigan?
You got to stay. I feel like I've had him top 20. We talked about this, Rafael, on other podcasts. I've had him top 20 forever. I feel like teams are just going to realize it. I mean, especially after the game against East Carolina in the conference
30
tournament.
was like 38, 20, 8 assists, 5
and 2
blocks.
Yeah, something like that. 2 steals, whatever
4
it was.
steals.
Yeah.
It was something crazy.
It's one of the single best games I've ever seen from a prospect. Like, I think teams are going to go, okay, this translates up. We don't need to overthink this, and Michigan's going to have a hole.
But how high does he need to go?
Top 20. I mean, top 25. Maybe even just first round, right?
I mean,
like
he tested last year, you know?
But if he's top,
if
you just look at the market, right? He's the number 1 player in the portal, right? Even though he's already committed.
Yep.
If JT Toppin got $4 million, and they're saying that Rob Wright got 3, and then there's I don't want to mention the player because I don't want to be aggregated. It sounds like Brian Windhorst here. I don't want to be aggregated, but there is a player that I've actually seen work out in person, and I hear he has an offer of $3.5 million to return. So with that being said, you got to imagine
that.
yeah, you got to imagine Yaxel has, he has a significant amount of money on the line.
Okay, so but at what point do you look like Coleman Hawkins and you have no buzz when you come back because you took all that bread?
Well, I think there's a
I get they're different players, but like
Coleman's always been like this guy that just teased you with flashes here and there.
Right.
I mean, like, that's why I say it's a tough decision, because if you're Yaxel, right, of course, Michigan can play more than UAB. But if you return to UAB, you're going to dominate.
But at that point, it's not about production because we know you're going to dominate. It's like what translates. And I don't know, man. I get it. And I'm not anybody's financial manager, at least not outside of this house. But it's like the money you get in college, do you lose it because the next year, like, the jury's out on you? You know who you are. And let's say he isn't whatever. Like, I feel like just go. Like, this is your second time testing. You know what I'm saying?
But that's why it's tough, because let's say Michigan says we'll give you 3. And
but okay, so
he's 20, and he goes 25. The money that he made at Michigan is probably equal to what his rookie contract would be over 3 years.
At 25?
I'm just rounding it up. I'm just guessing here. If they give him 3, if he's a late first round pick, what is that? $1 million, 1.2, something like that. Because I know with JT Toppin, the money that he's getting at Texas Tech is the equivalent of being the 13th pick in the draft. That's why it gets really, really tricky. Do you say, just in case I'm the last pick in the first round and I'm going to get a 3-year, $3.8 million deal, or do I go to Michigan and I'm just throwing numbers out and go for 1 year and get $3 million?
So for the sake of numbers, Deron Holmes last year, he went 22?
Yep.
And he's getting 3 years this year, 3.2 next year. And they got team options for 3 years, for $3 million and then $5 million. So essentially he signed basically a 2-year, $6 million deal. So if Yaxel's a top 25 pick, that's 2 years, $6 million, or do you take 1 year's $3 million and throw the dice again to see what your draft stock is?
Yeah, because that number could be lower for 2 years, right? Like if he goes 25th this year, right? If he stays another year, let's just call it $5 million or something from Michigan, right? Let's just ballpark it.
Mm-hmm.
What if the 40th pick next year? Does that 2-year average even win out? Like what? That's kind of where I'm at. It's like over 2 years as another year in college, is draft stock ever going to get better than where it is now? So then it's like you kind of have to weigh out the 2 years of it, first 2 years of the NBA or NIL plus first year NBA.
And I've had this conversation with agents, and I asked one agent, I was like, your client had real buzz 2 years ago, And right now he doesn't have any buzz, despite the fact that he's getting better. Do you have any regrets? And he's like, no. He's like, I don't have any regrets, because he's made so much money that he actually made more money staying in school. And he's going to have to claw his way to an NBA career, but he does have a cushion. And if he didn't work out the year that he tested, then he wouldn't be in the same situation. And so from the agent perspective, he's like, I'll make sure that my client has, a good foundation of money to start his adult life, which, I mean, we're in uncharted territory.
Yeah,
we just
that makes a lot of sense.
Don't know. All right, real quick, biggest omissions. And I'll go first here. Caleb Love. I'm not surprised, but Caleb Love was the guy that I don't want to call people like casual fans, but he was the guy I kept getting messages like, why isn't Caleb Love on draft boards? Why? And I do feel like people are going to run from Caleb Love in the pre-draft process. Like, that's not a guy you want to play one-on-one or two-on-two against. But I'm like, depending on which Caleb Love you watch, you may be like, hey, this guy's a first-round pick. And then there's games where he may go 2 for 19 or whatever. But he's like the biggest omission to me, because I feel like, and I'm not saying I know a guy who I would have taken off. I feel like with his resume, he should at least been one of the top 75 guys.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I love Ryan Nembhard's game. I really like Will Richard. I thought after the tournament, I really thought Will Richard was going to play his way in there. Potential as 3-and-D, needs to clean up some defensive stuff, but I think the upside there is really good. Also, Amari Williams from Kentucky, thought that was kind of surprising, especially with the stretch he had in the middle of the year where his playmaking just, like, he almost had to, but his playmaking took off. And I felt like with his size, that was something that really would have popped at 6'10", right? Yeah. And to NBA teams, get him there. I was shocked by those few guys.
I think Jackson Robinson was a surprise.
What about, is Chucky Hepburn a surprise, considering
I'm not surprised
how well he played? And then you see, I mean, maybe I'm not familiar with his game completely, but Javon Small got an invite too.
Yeah.
So that's the only reason why I would say, like, Chucky, if it came down to, because he got a G League, right? He got a G League invite.
I don't think they've announced that yet.
Chucky was at Portsmouth, though.
Portsmouth.
So for me, Mo Faye is a guy that I've had on my top 50. Amari Williams, I've had Malik Lewis. But James, your guy from Penn State, Yannick Niederhauser, did not get invited to the combine.
They didn't call me, man. They didn't call me. That's all that is. But he's going to be fine, man. He's going to be somebody that's going to work out really well. You'll see the athleticism. Maybe he gets the he wasn't in that Portsmouth either, because he's in the portal still. So
I had him at number 65. Well, I have him currently at number 65 on my big board. I just think the positional fit. But I tell you a guy who has to be sick that he did not make the list. Peyton, your guy, Richard. Peyton Sanford. What was your thoughts about him not making the combine after participating a couple years ago?
Yeah. I mean, last year. I mean, he's somebody, though, that didn't shoot the ball well. For a shooter, he didn't shoot very well. I think he shot like 32%, 33, something like that, maybe 34. But regardless, it's not numbers you want to see. Even on the volume, I still think there's a lot there in terms of just on-court talent. But I kind of get it. He's going to have to prove himself. This is kind of his put a chip on your shoulder. What happens? Because if I'm him, I'm showing everybody. Like, I know he did really well in pre-draft team workouts before the combine last year, and then nothing has recovered since the combine itself. If I'm him, I'm coming in with that chip on his shoulder, trying to be the top guy at the G League camp that he's probably going to be at and graduate to the combine.
Well, that wraps up this episode of the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast. It was good to have James and Richard on the show. Stick with us. We have more draft content. We're going to talk about the EYBL. We're going to talk about the Adidas 3 SSB, which is taking place this weekend. So stay tuned. Early next week, maybe this weekend, we're going to talk about grassroots basketball. Be sure to hit the subscribe button, like, share, comment, and click the bell so you can be notified. And we are out of here.